Okay, let's dive in. We're seeing climate change hit hard, right? Global greenhouse gas emissions hit historic highs between 2010 and 2020. And the impacts are undeniable: floods, droughts, sea levels rising, biodiversity loss. It's a really urgent global crisis. Against that backdrop, you had the Paris Agreement in 2015, a huge moment. Countries, including Cambodia, committed to cut emissions, aiming to keep warming below that crucial 1.5 degrees Celsius. And Cambodia's ambition here is, well, it's pretty striking. They've pledged to cut overall greenhouse gas emissions by almost 42% by 2030, plus a long-term plan for carbon neutrality by 2050. And a massive part of that hinges on their forests. Forests are these vital carbon sinks, They soak up enormous amounts of CO2. But here's the challenge for Cambodia. Their forest cover has been shrinking fast. It dropped from over 57% in 2010 down to around 45% by 2018. So how do you pursue development but also meet these critical climate goals when your natural carbon sponges are disappearing? And that leads us right to this key innovation we're exploring today, something called nesting. Specifically in the context of forestry and land use, the FOLU sector, nesting is basically a regulatory system. Think of it like a common set of rules, management approaches, and safeguards applied across all sorts of climate projects within a country or region. The main goal is to track and count emission reductions accurately under the UN's REDD plus mechanism. And the real key here is making sure measurements are consistent, accurate, and this is vital, not double counted.
Exactly. And that's what we're really digging into in this deep dive, Cambodia's pioneering work setting up this nesting framework. What's so interesting is how it helps coordinate all these different actions. Cutting emissions, yes, but also attracting climate finance, protecting forests, and importantly, supporting the people who actually live in and around these forest areas. Cambodia's experience here really offers some valuable lessons, I think, for other developing countries trying to balance development with, urgent climate action.
You mentioned urgency, and it's worth stressing again. The science is clear. Without immediate deep cuts across every sector, that 1.5 degree limit it's out of reach. And forests, as you said, critical carbon sinks. But deforestation and forest degradation, they do the opposite. They release all that stored carbon back into the atmosphere.
That's right. And this creates a big problem for REDD+ projects, the ones designed to reduce those emissions from deforestation. Often, these projects are scattered all over the place, different organizations running them, maybe using different ways to measure impact. It leads to unreliable accounting. And you get this huge risk of double counting.
Double counting, like the project claims a reduction and the national government also claims the same reduction.
Precisely. And that completely undermines a country's ability to track its real progress towards its climate commitments. It damages credibility.
Okay, let's unpack that accounting challenge. Can you give us maybe an analogy? How does nesting fix that fundamental problem of inconsistent counting?
Sure. Think of it like managing a bank account where people have made deposits in totally different currencies, dollars, euros, yen, whatever. If you don't convert everything to a single currency, say US dollars, you have no idea how much money you actually have. You can't make smart decisions about saving or spending. Nesting is basically that currency converter and ledger system for carbon. It's a regulatory framework. It standardizes how emissions reductions are measured and reported across projects, locations, right up to the national level. It boosts accuracy significantly by using common baselines, common reference points, like the National Forest Emission Reference Level.
And that reference level, that's the benchmark.
Exactly. It's the benchmark for forest emissions and removals over a specific time for that area. And it's non-negotiable for getting results-based payments in the UN-overseen carbon markets. Without that common benchmark, you're just comparing apples and oranges.
So it's not just about better numbers then. What are the other benefits Cambodia is seeing from putting this nesting system in place? Does it ripple out?
Oh, definitely. Beyond the technical stuff, it leads to much better governance overall. It really strengthens environmental integrity because everything is measured against the same high standard. And it boosts transparency significantly. And all of that governance, integrity, transparency underpins high-quality carbon accounting. That's essential for carbon credits because the demand for credits is growing, but buyers want proof they're real and accurate. Nesting provides that assurance.
Right. Quality is key. Are there examples where this verified quality is already making a difference for Cambodia in the market?
Yes, absolutely. One really concrete example.
Yeah.
Only nested project scale or REDD+ credits are eligible for CORSIA.
CORSIA, that's the scheme for international aviation, right?
That's the one. So airlines needing to offset emissions under that scheme have to buy nested credits if they're coming from REDD+ projects. And beyond that, even in the voluntary carbon markets, which have boomed since the Paris Agreement, buyers increasingly see nesting as a mark of quality. they're often willing to pay more, a premium, for credits from nested projects because they trust the accounting and the environmental integrity behind them.
That makes sense. And we even see big companies focusing on this. I remember reading about Amazon aiming for net zero by 2040. They specifically said they're investing in reduced deforestation by financing efforts across whole landscapes, and importantly, supporting projects that are nested within larger government-backed programs. They see it as improving credit quality.
Exactly. That's a clear signal from a major buyer about what they value.
Building a system like this sounds incredibly complex, though. How does Cambodia stack up globally? Are they really out front on this?
They really are.
Yeah.
Cambodia is genuinely a pioneer here. They're one of only maybe half a dozen countries truly at the forefront of developing these nested systems for REDD plus gensets.
Right.
We're talking alongside places like Colombia, Guatemala, Kenya, Mozambique, Peru. It's a small group. And their journey didn't happen overnight. It's been over a decade in the making, developing policies, programs. It all led up to their national REDD plus strategy in 2017.
Okay, so what were the essential building blocks? You mentioned 4 pillars they had to put in place.
Right. 4 key things. First, the national REDD plus strategy itself, the overall plan. Second, that forest emission reference level, the FEL we talked about, their carbon baseline. They submitted their first one in 2017 and an updated one in 2021 showing declining emissions, which is positive.
Okay, strategy and baseline. What else?
Third, a way to monitor what's happening on the ground. A national forest monitoring system, the NFMS. This tracks REDD plus activities, uses tools like Google Earth for mapping, basically improving data on forest, carbon, and land cover changes. And fourth, and this is crucial for fairness and buy-in, a Safeguards Information System, or SIS. This monitors 7 key social and environmental safeguards, things like transparent governance, respecting the rights of local and indigenous communities, making sure people benefit and aren't harmed.
That sounds like a massive undertaking, connecting all those different pieces, institutions, data, processes. How did they manage the rollout? Did they just flip a switch?
No, definitely not a flip-the-switch situation. It is very challenging. So Cambodia took a staged approach, which was smart. They started with what they called a pre-nesting stage back in 2019. Lots of consultations, drafting the rules. Then the official launch of the nesting system came in 2021. It's been gradual.
And where are they now in that process?
They're currently in what's termed early nesting. This supports a specific standard called JNR Scenario 1, which works for the voluntary carbon markets. So they can already issue these nested credits, and those are gaining value. The next step is looking towards future, or maybe full nesting, that could involve adopting JNR Scenario 2. And that would potentially open up access to markets like Corsia, which we mentioned, and also participation in Article 6 carbon trading under the Paris Agreement itself. Bigger scale stuff.
Okay, so let's talk mechanics. How does nesting actually manage all these different activities happening at different scales? You've got local community projects, maybe regional programs, national goals, and they need different kinds of finance, right? Like the Green Climate Fund might focus on national results, while private companies often want to buy credits from a specific project they can sort of see and touch. How does nesting bridge that?
That's a really key management question. And fundamentally, there are 2 basic ways nesting can approach this. One is a centralized model. Here, the accounting, the credit creation, it all happens at the national level. Local projects feed their performance data upwards, and then they get payments back from the central government based on some agreed benefit-sharing plan. This often fits well with state-owned land or finance tied to national targets.
Okay, that's one way. What's the other?
The other is more decentralized. In this model, both the national government and individual projects can potentially generate and trade carbon credits, but operating under common rules and safeguards. This can give stronger, more direct incentives to local communities or private landowners, but it definitely adds complexity to the national accounting side of things.
And Cambodia went for?
A mixed approach, which fits their pioneering style. They're integrating projects with national or subnational activities. The idea is that the results-based payments and the carbon credits will mostly be generated at that broader jurisdictional level, national or subnational. It tries to balance national oversight with project activity.
Trying to get the best of both worlds, perhaps.
Exactly. And it's already showing some concrete benefits. A key success is that Cambodia has managed to protect the progress made by existing older REDD plus projects. They supported these projects to continue selling their credits independently on the voluntary carbon markets, the VCMs. And that's brought in real money, around $12 million in finance for conservation. from big names like Disney, Delta, Gucci, Shell, Mitsui Corporation. So it shows the market viability.
That's significant buy-in. But for any of this to hold up, the legal foundations have to be solid, right? You can't build this on shaky ground. What does Cambodia's legal framework actually involve?
It's quite robust. They've put several key pieces in place. First, there's what's called a sub-decree. That's a specific type of legal instrument in Cambodia focused on national GHG reduction mechanisms. This is the main legal umbrella for nesting. It defines really important things, including carbon rights.
Okay, hang on. Carbon rights. That sounds important. What exactly does that mean, and why is defining it legally such a big deal?
It's a really big deal. Carbon rights here refer to the property rights that communities and individuals have to the actual emission reductions achieved through their efforts in managing forests. It's distinct from the carbon credit, which is the tradable financial unit. Defining these rights in law gives local people, the ones doing the work on the ground, a clear legal basis for benefiting from their conservation efforts.
So it empowers them directly.
Precisely. It gives them security, clarifies ownership of the environmental benefit, and really motivates participation. It ensures they have a stake. That sub-decree also sets minimum standards for projects and establishes the national registry we'll talk about.
Okay, so the sub-decree is the foundation. What else?
Then there's a process, which is like an official proclamation specifically for rolling out the nesting system. This process officially tasks Cambodia's National REDD Plus Task Force and its secretariat with actually developing and regulating the whole system. It assigns responsibility. And supporting both of those are detailed guidelines. These get into the nitty-gritty, the carbon accounting methods, the social and environmental safeguards, how project benefits get shared. Interestingly, the guidelines even specify that up to 20% of the revenue from selling carbon credits can go back to the government.
Oh, to fund the system itself.
Exactly. To help support the running of the nested system and broader forest protection work, it builds in some self-sufficiency.
And tying this all together, ensuring transparency, is the National REDD Plus registry system.
Yes, absolutely central. This registry officially lists and publicly tracks every single REDD Plus project. It's the central database, making sure all projects play by the same rules, the new regulations on tracking emissions, meeting standards for registration, adhering to those safeguards. It's vital for accountability and market confidence.
So looking ahead, nesting systems aren't static, right? They can be improved. What's next for Cambodia on this front? How do they keep refining it?
Continuous improvement is definitely the goal. Cambodia plans to keep strengthening its institutions and those monitoring systems, the NFMS for forest tracking and the SIS for safeguards. The aim is to get even better alignment between the emission reductions happening at different scales, local, regional, national. And all this progress connects directly to the global climate framework, especially now that the rules for Article 6 of the Paris Agreement covering international carbon markets were finalized at COP26 in Glasgow.
Right, Article 6 is a big one.
It is. And because Cambodia has made such strides with nesting, a method that's really gaining international acceptance, they might be able to move faster towards participating in those Article 6 transactions. That could unlock significant new climate finance. Plus, they've been actively involved as an observer in the VCMI, the Voluntary Carbon Market Integrity Initiative. That helps build their knowledge and capacity regarding these complex markets.
So what are the very next concrete steps for them? What needs to happen to move fully into this next phase?
The key immediate steps are the formal signing of that sub-decree we discussed and the official endorsement of the process. Once those legal instruments are fully enacted, it creates the complete enabling environment to make the RED Plus guidelines and the registry fully operational. That's the transition from this early nesting phase to full nesting.
But it's not all smooth sailing, presumably. You mentioned a potential challenge earlier.
Yes, a key challenge inherent in nesting is managing potential mismatches in performance between the different scales. What happens if local projects are knocking it out of the park, but the overall national numbers aren't great? Or the other way around. Cambodia will need to develop careful policies for how to handle that, how to share the benefits when things go well at different levels, but also how to manage the liabilities or responsibilities when there's underperformance. It's complex.
That allocation of risk and reward does sound tricky.
It requires careful thought and good governance structures.
But despite that challenge, the overall picture sounds pretty positive, especially with the way the carbon markets are heading.
Absolutely. The international voluntary carbon market is growing very quickly. And importantly, the average price for carbon credits is trending upwards, which is promising. By pioneering this nesting system, Cambodia is positioning itself really well to tap into that growing international finance stream. Finance that's crucial for protecting their forests and supporting their climate goals while benefiting communities.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener? Cambodia's journey with nesting really highlights how crucial things like consistency, accuracy, and trust are in the climate action space, especially when you get into complex areas like forest conservation and carbon markets.
Yeah, and understanding these, maybe sometimes technical-sounding systems is really key to appreciating how countries can actually pursue ambitious climate targets, how they can protect ecosystems that are vital for all of us and do it in a way that supports the people living there. It's that intersection of global goals and local realities.
So here's something to think about. Given Cambodia's really groundbreaking work here, could this kind of national coordination, this detailed regulatory approach, become a model, a blueprint for other developing nations trying to juggle economic needs with climate ambition, trying to attract that vital international investment? And maybe more broadly, how might approaches like nesting reshape the future of global carbon markets and forest conservation efforts worldwide? Definitely something to ponder.